All right. Thank you, Sherilyn and the band. They're going to be back right after lunch at Lydia's worship, and we thank them. You know, I think they were talking about Jesus. I think that's what they were talking about.
Singing about Jesus.
Yeah, singing about Jesus. By the way, if you notice your lanyards, the beautiful yellow, they were donated by an organization called Great Commission Publication. And Great Commission Publication has wonderful Christian, biblically based literature, and you can check them out on the web. But the thing that I like most about the lanyard, it has on there, "Show me Jesus." You remember Cuba Gooding, "Show me the money"? Forget the money, show me Jesus.
Amen.
All right. We're running a little bit late, but we'll catch up somehow. Pastor CAREY. Pastor CAREY is only, he's 88 years young. Can you believe that?
Wow.
He's been a Christian for 80 years. Can you imagine that? 80 years he's been walking with Jesus. And he's going to have a wonderful workshop today. So, Pastor CAREY, lead us in a word of prayer.
Father, we know you are a great God. I think of that scripture from the Old Testament, Father. Is there anything too hard for thee, O God? Father, we know the answer to that question. We used to sing it in a little chorus. Nothing is impossible when you put your trust in God. Nothing is impossible when you're resting on His Word. Is there anything too hard for me? Oh God, we praise you for your faithfulness. We thank you for all these who have gathered in your name today. Wonderful friends that we haven't seen since last year at our conference. We thank you, Father, that they're still walking with you and giving you the praise and the glory. Thank you for a music team that challenged us all the way through, that we're making a decision every time we sing a song. Every time we hear the word, we have to make a decision. The nature of our master demands a decision. The nature of our mission demands surrender. The nature of our message calls all men everywhere. For he said, whosoever will call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. But how can they call on him in whom they have not heard? How can they hear without a preacher? How can they preach except they be sent? Lord, these words have rung in my heart all these years since I walked the aisle as a 15-year-old and said, wherever you lead, I'll go. Father, I still make that commitment today. And I want to say, though none go with me, I'll still follow. I've decided to follow Jesus.
Amen.
No turning back. No turning back. Father, may that be our prayer today. As we face the truth again, as people who know you and love you, share with us in these workshops. Father, I pray that we'll give them our full attention and make up our mind that if you speak to us about any area of our life that we need to work on, that we'll be obedient. And Father, we won't be able to make the excuse anymore. Nobody ever told us. Nobody ever warned us. Nobody showed us the way. And Lord, he that knoweth to do good doeth it not. To him it is sin. So if we know, we have to make a decision. May we remember that today. And we give you praise and thanks and glory. In Jesus' precious name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
19 years ago, and I introduced myself earlier as Woody. I'm a grateful recovering addict. Actually, I'm grateful to be an alcoholic, because being an alcoholic caused me to realize how desperately, completely I need Jesus. Amen. And 19 years ago, I asked Russell SPATZ to be my sponsor. Wow. And Russell's done a lot of things. He's said a lot of things in the last 19 years. But the most important thing that I've learned is what Paul says. And actually, I think 2 years ago you did a whole lecture on this. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it's the power of God to salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and then to the Gentile. Us, dogs, we get the crumbs, but Russell, he gets the full load. But here's the deal. It's not enough to believe in God. You've got to believe God. And listen, this is what God's saying to every one of us today. I shall be your God. God says, I shall be your God, and you will be my people. Russell, come up here and bless us.
I'll go up there. Just put that right up there. Just get me a stand. Thank you. I can do it. Old age is not for sissies. Okay. Let me see. Oh!
Oh!
So I gotta wait for Daniel. Are we like on or something? Are you okay? Okay. Put that app on that makes me look like Brad Pitt. Imagine of yours, okay? So, for those in the back who can't really see me, I have long wavy blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes. Sort of like a Brad Pittish, Clint Eastwood sort of deal going on. My name's Russell SPATZ. I'm an alcoholic. Saved by the precious blood of Jesus. I want to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that. Anybody who knows me knows my deal. By the way, it's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to, with all of you, it's a privilege to be here every year, and privilege to follow Pastor CAREY. Every Sunday night, Pastor CAREY, I sort of joke with him. It's not a joke, he's got that Baptist hair, But Jim Myrick pointed out to me this morning that he may have the Baptist hair, but I do have the Jesus hair, sort of, in any event. He's wonderful every Sunday at 6 p.m. If you're not churched up, at Christ Fellowship, we have a traditional service. We sing a lot of hymns, old-time hymns. And Pastor CAREY gives a message. He gives a wonderful message. So we want to invite you there. And on Friday nights at Oak Cutler Presbyterian Church, where I'm there, and we have a wonderful meeting at 7 o'clock, an Alive Again meeting, a 12-step recovery, Christ-centered meeting called Alive Again Ministries, which Woody and I are involved in. And Pastor CAREY's there with Doris, his lovely wife, and a bunch of other people. And it's at 7 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, they serve pizza. And I promise you, if you're not there before 6:30, there ain't gonna be no pizza for you. So that's the deal. Just make sure you get there. So I don't really plan a lot of what I am dressed up today. For those of you who know me, I'm wearing a coat. I have socks on and everything. And I have a guy when I go to Old Cutler, and I love my church. I go to Old Cutler usually the 9:15 service, and I have a gentleman that always comes up to me, and I sit in the first pew, and a gentleman always comes up to me. He's a wonderful young man. He's probably like 85 years old. He's always wearing a coat and a tie, which is great, and I understand that. Then he always looks at me and he says, are you wearing socks? And I have to show him, I'm wearing socks today. And I am. But in any event, when I can promise you this, when I came to Jesus, when I first came to Jesus, on December 25th, 1980, at Christmas morning, 1980, 3 o'clock in the morning, I can promise you this, I wasn't wearing socks. I think I was in my underwear or something. He didn't seem to mind, by the way. Jesus didn't mind. He was just happy I was knocking, I was opening the door, and I'm happy. I've never been, I'm a satisfied customer. So I want to talk about a few things. I don't plan this, but I want to tell you, from time to time what happens is, and I trust in the Lord. I trust in the Lord, which is, you know, people sometimes say to me, because I get to do this quite a lot, don't you ever get nervous or anything? And I said, no, I really don't. I don't get nervous at all. And he said, I always pray beforehand to the Lord to give me the words and to show up. As a matter of fact, I said, Lord, I'd appreciate it if you would show up and I won't. You know what I mean? I just want to keep me out of this, because when I'm involved, I said, just show up. And he's never failed me. So, and I've been doing this for a long time. So I know what I want to talk about. I think it's very important to give testimony. So I want to put in a little bit of my testimony. I've been, I'm going to be 70 in March, and I came I came to Jesus and came into recovery when I was 31 years old. So I'm sober as of this month, my birthday, my sobriety date. I came to Jesus on December 25th. That's my Jesus birthday, when I was reborn December 25th, 1980, but my sobriety date was, my last drink was January 25th, 1981, so I've been sober 38 years. And that's not, and listen, I don't know why I feel funny about people applauding, and I don't mind the applause. I appreciate it, as long as we all know that the applause is for Jesus Christ. You know, Bill Wilson in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I worship Jesus in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he is my, quote, higher power. As a matter of fact, he's not my higher power, he's the highest power. I'm one of these guys that took it real serious and studied, and eventually got into studying the source material, and Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, in which it said the books that they found absolutely essential were 1 Corinthians 13, Sermon on the Mount, and the book of James. And so I study all that stuff, and I read all that stuff, and I'm not in denial of the deal. You understand what I'm saying? I read Alcoholics Anonymous #3, you know, Bill Dotson, you know, the man on the bed, you know, that portrait, that if you all are familiar with that, where it says came to leave. I read the part where Bill Wilson said, the Lord has been so wonderful to me, curing me of this terrible disease that I want to keep talking about him and telling other people. And Bill Dotson saying, you know, I realized what the secret was. Bill Wilson was so grateful to the Lord, and he said he owed everything to the Lord. And I know who Bill Wilson was looking to. I know who Dr. Bob was looking to when he said, if you're an atheist and agnostic or have some sort of intellectual pride, and I had a lot of intellectual pride. I just had pride to begin with, false pride. He said, which keeps you from anything in this book, I feel sorry for you. So I understand. I understand, you know, when I read the book, along with after I got to be 9 and 10 years sober and I started getting into the source material, and I read it within the context of what they were doing in 1935 through 1937, getting down on their knees and surrendering, doing the surrender to the Lord and all that sort of stuff. When I read the book, maybe I look at it from a different perspective. So when I read the words, when they read the words, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. The longer I'm sober, the clearer their path is to me, and the more intent I am on following it, which maybe has something to do with our 6th step, where we become entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, the step they call separating the men from the boys. I'm not so sure, as much as I like talking about the 3rd step, where we make a decision, I'm not so sure that decision really becomes wholly mature and sealed, in a sense, until we become entirely ready to give up all idols and become like him. That's why they probably say that the man who does this repeatedly is a man who's trying to grow in the image and likeness of his Creator. That's probably why they say in the book, once you make this decision, it says that we're selfish and we're self-centered, and that's the true nature of our problem. And above everything, we must get rid of the selfishness. You got to get rid of the booze and the cocaine, all that stuff, that other stuff, in order to even work on the selfishness, on the you don't know who you're talking to, and why is this always happening to me, and all that feel sorry for yourself, that worldly sorrow stuff. But I mean, once you get rid of that and you start getting into what the real problem is, it says our real problem is that we're selfish. And we think only about ourselves, and we see the only thing we see is how is this world affecting me? And it must get rid of that selfishness. How do you get rid of that selfishness when you can't stop thinking about it? I get a lot of guys call me up in trouble, and what they basically say, when they talk about their trouble and their worries and their anxieties, I can always tell, as you can probably tell, it's usually preceded by a great deal of thinking about their problems. And I mention to them, I happen to mention them because if anybody knows me knows if I do anything well, it's sarcasm. And I call it gentle rebuking. So it's like biblical, it has a biblical sort of thing. I think alcoholics, I personally think, in preaching, I speak alky when I speak to alcoholics, so I personally think alcoholics appreciate sarcasm, you know, and good sarcasm. And so I say to them something like, you know, it sounds to me like you've been thinking a lot about this. And they say, yeah, I have. It's driving me crazy. I can't stop thinking about it. And then I say, well, why don't you just stop? And they say, I can't. Anybody here ever have a problem with drinking or drugging against their will? Yeah, well, this is a recovery conference, and if you have the same kind of bad strain that I had, I came into AA and came into recovery because I couldn't stop drinking. I mean, I don't know whether I have to describe that to you, but I mean, if I had to do it in a short time, without telling a whole long drunk-a-log, which I'm not going to do, if I had to do it in a short story, I would say something like this. One morning, when I was 31 years old, I woke up, and after hurting a lot of people, and getting to a point in my life where I had nothing, you know, maybe I always realized that I was a nothing. No matter that I had a law degree, or I was the division chief in the state's attorney's office, or I had this and I had that, and whatever the thing I thought I had the car, no, whatever it was, maybe my problem was I always thought deep down inside I was a nothing. Maybe that's where those voices came from in the shower when I would lather up and I'd say, I'm a piece of crap, I ought to kill myself. Maybe that's where those voices came from. If I only had this and I only had that, then I'd be something. And then I'd run around trying to buy this and that, spend money I didn't have, to buy things I didn't need, to impress people I didn't like. Maybe I thought I had to have those things. Maybe I it was so important to have things, and I was such an if-onlyer and saying I have to have this girl, and I have to have this car, and I have to have this job, and I have to have this money, and maybe the reason I thought I had to have that because I thought without all that stuff I was a piece of crap. Maybe I just didn't feel worthy unless I had that stuff, you know, and I was the deal. I was a nothing, and I always felt unworthy, and I was always going to be a nothing, and I used to put something in my body, and it would turn me into an almost. And when you're a nothing, almost is top of the world, but you know that booze only lasts about an hour or 2 or 3 or 4. The sex only lasts a little while, and then you got to get a new wife or a new car. You know, you always got to get a new car because it comes an old car, and then what are they going to think about you, even though you tell yourself you don't care what other people think about you, and then you got to get, because the old car isn't working, the old wife isn't working, you know, the old job isn't working, the old suit isn't working. Nothing's working to make you feel like you're a man or that you're worthwhile, and you're a slave. You're essentially a slave. You're a slave to sin. You can't stop sinning, and you can't stop thinking. So you get rid of you become recovered from a hopeless sense of mind and body. You become recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. Like everybody in here is recovered. Like everybody who comes today becomes recovered because they stop. Because I got to a point in my life where I woke up in the morning and I said to myself, I'm not going to have a drink today. You ever proclaim that you're not going to have a drink? You ever proclaim that you're not going to do any drugs?
Many times.
You ever proclaim that? You ever proclaim it with like feeling? Like you mean it? Like you do mean it? And you ever proclaim it like in the morning and then you're drunk by the afternoon? You know, I've done that many, many times. You know what happens when you proclaim something that you really mean in the morning and you're drunk in the afternoon? What happens is you start getting the feeling that you're a piece of crap. You get to the point where you sort of accept the fact that you're 31 years old and your life is over and you're never going to be better again. You accept the fact that you're a loser. You become ashamed. You drift over from, if you're lucky, quite frankly, if you're blessed, you drift over from feeling sorry for yourself, worldly sorrow, for being ashamed of yourself. That's a blessed actually event. It sounds terrible, but it's scriptural. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and that's where I got to. That's where I got to. I mean, I got to on December 25th, 1980. All alone. I had since 5 years before that walked away from a wife who didn't do anything wrong except the fact I stopped feeling good. She no longer fixed me. And so I walked away from her, and I walked away from a son, and I walked away from a house, and I walked away from anything that I thought, or I should have thought was the greatest things in my life and that were important. And I walked away because, but I felt I was free to go to now I was free to go to the bars. I was free to date other women. I was free to have whatever sex I wanted to have or anything like that. But the truth is, I was never free not to do that. I was never free not to worship idols. Man's heart is a factory of idols. And that was my deal. I was hooked on the things of this world. And you can't love God. You can't love God and mammon and this world. You know, these things will kill you. But you know, one of the things that happens is like alcohol and drugs, they work. You know, I'd walk into a bar with a good-looking woman, and all the guys would be looking at me, and I'd feel like I was drunk, like I was high. It's true. Jerry's laughing because he doesn't know what it's like. But I'd buy a brand new car that I couldn't afford, and I'd drive out on the street, and I felt I was high. You know, I felt I was okay. Until the car got a flat or got scratched or something, then I was a piece of crap again. You know what I mean? I mean, my life was based on, I'm an if-onlyer and a yes-butter and a you don't understander, and, you know, and you don't know what it's like, and why is this always happening to me, and you don't know who you're dealing with. You know, I'm the king of the universe, so whatever the heck it is, I just got all sorts of screwy feelings. While materially sort of doing well. I mean, if you looked at me from the outside, I probably looked okay. I graduated school, became a lawyer, became a prosecutor, all that sort of stuff. But deep down inside, I was anything but that. So in any event, I finally got to the point where I thought my life was over, it was never going to be better again, and I was ashamed of myself, and that happened to be on Christmas morning, 1980, and the Lord, I know it's the Lord, because I believe everything, you know, He's sovereign over everything. You know what it says in the big book I love the big book of alcoholics. I love that because I know what the source material is, so I know what they're talking about. And so I don't have a problem with it, but he says in that book, he said, once you make us, it says, we must get rid of this selfishness, we must or it kills us. And then it says, you ready for this? It says, God makes that possible. That's the harsh way. God makes that possible. And it says this, once you make that decision, that sincere decision for God, all sorts of remarkable things happen in your life. And that's been my experience. You know what they say, when the man with experience meets a man with money, the man with experience will walk away with the money, and the man with the money will have walked away with an experience. So experience is important. My experience is just like it says in the book, that the Lord being all powerful, this is what it says, is the direct quote, being all powerful. He's not the higher power, He's the highest power. As a matter of fact, if you're as crazy as I am, you know what I mean? And you have as many problems as I have, you don't want to go to the higher power. You don't want no deputy power, you know what I mean? You better hit the highest power. Being all powerful, He'll give you anything you need Not want, because your wants are crazy, you know. You want a lot of stupid stuff. Anything, you want a lot of selfish stuff, you know. I still want selfish. I'm still convinced. You see, the problem is, the only problem I have with the Lord, you know, I mean, is that, number one, you know, I know there are certain things that would really fix me, but he's not listening. You know what I mean? And when he does fix me, he doesn't let me know how he's going to do it. He does stuff, and sometimes it's like very painful, and it's hurtful, and if he'd only consult with me, that he's going to put me through this mess in order to teach me, but he doesn't do that, so it's kind of scary. So what happens is when I'm going through this stuff, I'm so scared because he hasn't consulted me that I have to get on my knees and turn to him and say, what the heck's going on here? And it's almost as if he's doing it just to keep me close, you know, and like a thorn in the flesh. Oh yeah, that's right, that is why he's doing it. But, and it says he'll give us anything I need if I stay close to him and perform his work well. So I guess what I need to do, number one, I got to stay close to him. Is if I'm not close to him, how am I going to know what his work is? And apparently, whenever I ask him what his work is, it always has to do with making coffee for other people, or always has to do with doing stuff that I don't want to do. I don't know. His work always has to do with being a maximum service to him and other people, you know, and like Jesus, like being a servant. And so here's what happened. This is all leading up to this, you know. I probably haven't said enough to convince you that I'm really crazy, but I am. You know, there's tapes, you can listen to them. I'm really nuts. But in any event, I mean, this is serious sickness. This isn't your sort of mild stuff that you guys have, the lighter stuff. But in any event, so what I'm leading up to say, okay, is so I don't plan these things, which about this time you probably have realized that. I don't plan this stuff, but what happens is in my mind, like it's like the Lord, the Holy Spirit does this stuff, and he sort of sends me, so like I start thinking about certain verses. And so about 3 or 4 verses and things came up into my mind that I wanted to share with you regarding what my talk is about. And somewhere during this talk, I'm going to figure out what it's about. I promise you that. But I'm thinking that it has something to do with the fact that, which is probably good for a Christian recovery conference, I think it has something to do with the fact that Jesus saves. Did you know that's a hymn, actually? Jesus saves, Jesus saves. It has something to do with the fact that Jesus saves. So I want to talk about... I think at a recovery conference, it's good to talk about Jesus. Not smart. Is that okay, Pastor? Do I have your permission? Thank you. Thank you. I love to see Pastor in the front row because he keeps me honest. You know, I need that. Believe me. And also Woody did me a great favor, because one of the verses that always goes through my mind, is, which I was going to read you. I'm going to read you some of these verses that I want to talk about. And I think you'll see what they have to do with. They all have to do with sort of like the same thing. Is Romans 1:16, and he just basically said it. I am not ashamed of the gospel. I am not ashamed of the good news. I am not ashamed of what I'm telling you. I am not ashamed of the fact that on December 25th, 1980, I thought my life was over. It was never going to get better again. A guy came on the TV at 2 o'clock in the morning and gave an invitation for me to get on my knees and say the sinner's prayer and invite Jesus Christ in my life. And I hit the floor like lead. You know what I mean? I didn't question it. I didn't say I don't believe in God or any of that stuff. I just hit the floor and I said the sinner's prayer and I accepted Jesus into my life. And it may not be a big deal here, but for a Jewish kid from Great Neck, New York, it was a big deal. Let me tell you something. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. You need to understand I'm not ashamed of that. And, you know, to you that may seem sort of ridiculous. I don't know what you're saying in your mind about that. You may say, well, of course you're not ashamed of that. Well, I've got to tell you, I speak all over the United States. I've spoken at many, many conferences. I speak now at many meetings right here. I'm talking about what people call secular meetings. I don't believe there are such a thing as secular meetings. Not when I walk into an AA room and they talk about God, and God's all over the book, and God's all... I think there's a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous that is, if that's not exactly as my sponsor said, Well People's Anonymous. And I think there's a big book that talks about God. I think there's 12 and 12 that talks about God. I think there's a Bible that talks about God. I think there's a Dr. Bob and the Good Old Times that talks about God. And I think there's a fellowship that is not exactly Well People's Anonymous. I think there's a fellowship of people that know that they once in a while have to hear about God, but would prefer not to. I think that there's a fellowship where, by virtue of the fact that it's made up of alcoholics, they balk at really doing what they need to do. And that's why they don't experience the rocket ship in the fourth dimension of existence. That's why they don't experience much of heaven. You know what I mean? They experience something called physical sobriety, which we give up battalions for and everything like that. And the reason I talk about AA, and the reason I think it's important, the church has made some big mistakes, quite frankly. I don't want to criticize the church. They said, well, we'll stay out of Hollywood, we'll stay out of higher education, we'll stay out of AA. Because I'm not one of those guys. I'm one of those guys that listen to Jesus when he says, we leave the 99 in the church and we go after the one. That's what you do if you're a Christian. The most unchristian thing anybody could say to me is, don't go out there because there's a bunch of pagans and Christians, just hang out in the church with us. You know what I mean? Because, you know, my understanding is we're supposed to go out there and carry the message. You understand what I'm saying? And you know that one lost sheep? I was that one lost sheep. You know what that one lost sheep is? You know what the Lord has done for us? They created this fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. And what the Lord did is he invited all the lost sheep to meet in AA rooms. So if you're a Christian, you belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because that's where all the lost sheep are gathered. They're hanging out there. But you don't hear too much about God in AA in some places. South Florida is a little different. And you know why you don't hear, and let me tell you something, there are a lot of Christians in AA. You know why you don't hear too much about God in AA? You know why? I'll tell you why, because they're ashamed. Because you have Christians that are raising their hands in churches that either don't go to AA because they feel that they're pagans and therefore they shouldn't go, which is exactly where we should be, okay, with the sinners. Boy, we would have been in big trouble if Jesus decided I'm not going to go down and talk to sinners, wouldn't we? That'd be a real problem. If Jesus decided not to talk to you or have a relationship with you because you were a sinner, you know, came for sinners, you know, he eats with sinners, he drinks with them, you know, he hangs out with them, you know. And the reason you don't hear people talk about it because they're ashamed. You know why they're ashamed? Because they're worried about what other people think about them, even though they don't care what other people think about them. And so the reason why I'm able to talk about this, and I believe you have to be as wise as a serpent and know how to speak about it in your own life, in your own testimony, is because, like Bill Wilson said. Bill Wilson said this. He said, I am so grateful because the Lord cured me of this terrible disease that I got to keep talking about and telling other people. He was compelled to tell other people about God. The Big Book is a book that, I don't know if you know this, there's a chapter in the Big Book, you may not realize this, called Chapter to the Agnostics. A takes a stand. It says the premier code of morals, you know, do the next right thing, all that stuff, or better philosophy of life would have helped us. We would have been sober a long time. It doesn't help us. We had to find a power, so we wrote a book where we had to talk about God. A takes a stand. It's a stand against agnosticism. It's a stand against atheism. That's the rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Does that mean we won't let them in? That they can't go to meetings? They take a stand. Well, you say to me, yeah, but there are meetings. There are A meetings for agnostics and atheists. I said, well, yes. Those were things that were put together by, quote, the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Never forget the fellowship. Our fellowships are very important, but the source material is the books we read, like the Bible and things like that. And, you know, sometimes you've just got to be discerning and see what's going on. So there's just a couple of things I want to read before I get totally off the track. And I got my phone here because I put down a couple of things on my phone. So I remember, I want to read you this, one of my favorite, how many people like hymns? Okay, I got to tell you, I got a lot of favorite hymns. One of my favorite hymns, you know, which Man, I hope you identify with this. God, I hope you do. It says this. Anybody know the hymn, "To God Be the Glory"? Let me tell you what that hymn says, because I think it's biblical, you know. It says, "O perfect redemption, the purchase of blood, to every believer, the promise of God." Now listen to this one. You're going to like this one. If you're like me, you're going to like this one. The vilest offender who truly believes that moment from Jesus, a pardon received.
Amen. All right.
Man, if that doesn't blow your mind. You don't suffer from the disease I can suffer from, or quite frankly, you're not born, you haven't been, I'm not going to say you've not been born again, but if that doesn't strike you to your heart, the vilest offender who truly believes that moment from Jesus, a pardon receives. You know, you receive that pardon from Jesus, where you no longer have to tell yourself you're a piece of crap, and you can walk with your head held high, and then you say to yourself, but I'm not going to tell anybody about that, because I'm ashamed, because they'll look at me funny. You know, you got to look at that deal, you know. I'm not going to try to make anybody feel bad or anything, but hey, if you're convicted, you're convicted. What can I say? You know what I mean? Yeah, but, okay, so, and of course that goes along with the other hymn, Jesus Saves. You know, it says, we have heard the joyful sound, Jesus saves, spread the tidings all around. Jesus saves, Jesus saves. I think that's something to do with something called the Great Commission. And it's like the Great Commission, it's like important, you know. So here I want to read just a couple things to you. And, you know, one of the great things is knowing the Word, right? Isn't it? I mean, listen, I believe, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that when Jesus said, his word will not come back void. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I think it's the ultimate bait. I believe that now I'm not going to get into predestination or election or anything like that, because I'm not sure I understand it, but the bottom line is, there's something in my heart where I believe that, you know, Jesus said, I know my sheep, and well, either he's lying or I'm not getting what he's saying. He says, I know my sheep and they know me. That's what he says. They hear my voice. I know my sheep and they know me. My word will, trust me, go out there and talk about it. Pastor CAREY talked about it. How are they going to know? I know my sheep and they know me. My word won't come back void. But how are they going to know unless you tell them? So I am one of these people that believe if there is an absolute atheist in the audience, hates the Lord, and he's, quote, one of the elect or whatever it is, that if I just read Scripture, any old Scripture, one line of Scripture, you know, he could walk out damning me and being ticked off at me, but I believe that somewhere down the road, that sucker is going to turn around and love Jesus Christ and remember that word. I believe he's hooked. He's cooked. You know what I mean? Put a fork in it, you know? It's over. You know? So, call me crazy, but I mean, what else could Jesus be talking about? So, of course, Woody's already read that one part. It says, this is the Apostle Paul, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God for salvation for everyone who believes. First for the Jew and then for the Gentile. Since I am Jewish, I always read this to Woody. I say first to the Jew, and then if we're desperate, to the Gentile, you know. Because that's not really what it says. That's just me joking with Woody. Because Woody, you know, went to RTS. He's like a real Christian. You know, he's a doctor. He's like a doctor in Christianity. He's like he's like a pastor and everything. For in the gospel, a righteousness from God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just like it is written, the righteous will live by faith. So that's the first thing. That's the first one that went through my mind, which Woody already spoke about. And the next thing, I just want to read this one. Thank you very much, Jerry. You know, I'm old and decrepit. It's over for me. What can I say? Yeah. Don't say that? Okay. You're just worried because you think I'm going to see Jesus before you do. So I was thinking about now, oh here, where is it? Well, I was thinking about the thorn, well, I don't even, what is this? Oh yeah, Romans 7. Romans 7. I like this one. You know, I got to tell you something. There'll probably be a lot of people who listen to this and think I'm crazy. Well, I have a lot of people think I'm crazy anyway. I am crazy, as a matter of fact. What am I saying? You don't have to think I'm crazy. I admit it. I confess it. Okay, so listen to this. This is the Apostle Paul. Listen, if you want to aspire to be a human being and a Christian, okay, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying, you know, you worship anybody, but I mean, you can't find somebody more to aspire to than the Apostle Paul. I mean, 13 books out of the Bible. I mean, he's pretty much held in high esteem by everybody. Now, this is the Apostle Paul. Now, this is him talking. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. I don't want to drink. I say I'm not going to drink, but I end up drinking. I mean, I ain't saying the Apostle Paul's an addict just because he said he had a thorn in his flesh, a messenger from Satan. You know, he asked God 3 times to remove it, and God said, I will not remove it. My grace will be sufficient for you. And I add the words one day at a time. Because when you're weak, you're strong. Which, you know, when you're weak, I'm strong in you. My grace will allow you to overcome. Now, I'm not saying he's an addict, but I got to tell you something. You know, when somebody starts talking, and I'm an addict, and I'm an addict and an alcoholic, and I start identifying with them, and I start saying, I know what that guy's talking about, because I've been there. I know what it's like to, just like he says, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. Now, if I know what God commands me to do, if I know what's right, if I know it's right to stay at home, if I know it's right not to look at other women, if I know it's right not to cheat on my wife, if I know it's right not to spend money I don't have, to buy things I don't need, to impress people I don't like, if I know it's right to do these things, and I don't do it, and I despise myself for not doing it, I sit around thinking about what a piece of crap I am, how I ought to be killed, or I'm dead, or I'm not as good as anybody, I compare my insides to other people's outsides, if I feel terrible about myself, I must be doing it because I am powerless over sin, and sin is inside of me. Well, I guess it's sort of like that thing in the big book where it says the alcohol is but a symptom of our disease. Our real disease lives in our minds and not in our bodies. Well, you see, when you know the source material, you know what they're really talking about. This is the stuff they're reading. Okay? What a wretched man am I. I'm sort of thinking that's the same thing as Paul saying I'm a piece of crap, I ought to kill myself. I don't know. What do you think? What a wretched man am I? You know, if I was speaking Christian, I'd say what a wretched man am I. If I'm speaking Alki, I'd say I'm a piece of crap, I ought to kill myself. Same deal. What a wretched man am I. Who will rescue me or save me from this body of death? So who's going to save me from thinking? You know, when these guys call me up and they say, well, who's going to save me from this body of death? I keep on thinking these terrible thoughts. I keep on doing these terrible things. Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, I myself, in my mind, I want to serve the law of God. I want to serve the law. But in my sinful nature, in my personality, my sponsor once said to me, I shared this last night, I said, my time's up. My time's not really up, Woody. It's just in your mind. But listen to me. I'm gonna wrap it up. I just realized. My sponsor once said to me, "Why do you do the stuff you do?" This is after I was sober, and I said to him, "I said, why do you think the stuff you think? Why do you say the stuff?" I said, "That's just my personality." And he said, "Well, your personality is killing you." I said, and I like my personality. I thought it was like cute or something, you know, when I yelled and screamed and that crazy, you know. And how do you get rid of your personality? How do you, like, say, why can't you be like your brother? How do you do that, you know? How do you be like somebody else when I've been like me all my life? And you know what Dr. Young said? It said ideas, emotions, and attitudes that are the driving or guiding nature of these people are shifted to one side. They become dominated by a whole new set of ideas, emotions, and attitude. Because when the Lord sits on the throne of your heart and you give yourself to Jesus, and He's driving, what happens is your personality changes. You become a new person. You become a new creature. You're reborn. That's how you change your personality. And so that's what it says. Yeah, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. But in this sinful world, this nature, I'm a slave to the law of sin. So I'm a slave, but not a slave anymore. Now I'm free. So I guess that's why I talk about this stuff. And I get to talk about this stuff to meetings like this. And don't be ashamed of this stuff. And just, you know, I love this. Yeah. Who knew that when the Apostle Paul wrote all this stuff in the Bible, he was stealing it from the book Alcoholics Anonymous? Who knew that that was actually happening? It's like amazing, you know? How did that happen? Okay, so Woody told me I have to leave. Yes, I know. It's so sad. God bless you all.
Russell, thank you so much. If you want to hear some more of Russell, go to rocketed.org, and he's got hundreds of these talks on there. And let's give Jesus, because Russell's not all that important, but Jesus is. Thank you for showing us Jesus this morning. All right, now we're going to have workshops, and I'm going to ask Pastor CAREY is going to be in here in this room. And I'm going to ask Patricia Ann. Where's Patricia Ann? Patricia Ann, come up here. Patricia Ann is going to do color therapy for us. Art medication. Medication. Oh, yeah. Medication. Patricia Ann's a sweetheart. She.
I dispense pills during the meditation.
Yeah. Not really. But we also have Louis Carrillo. Where's Louis? I think Louis is going to be doing Silver Lining. Yes. Yeah. And Cleve Bell. Where's Cleve? Cleve, are you here? All right. If you'll come up here, and what I'm going to do, you choose whichever one you want to go to, and follow Patricia Ann or follow Cleve. Hey, Cleve, good to see you, man. God bless you. All right, and where's Louis?
He's right back. Right, cooking.
Okay. All right, so they're in the back, and if you'll just follow them, they'll show you where to go. Okay.
You just pass the sexual addiction group, and then you come to art meditation.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay. All right. So choose one of them, and try to be back here in 1 hour. Because in 1 hour we're going to have an incredible worship service. It's going to be led by Dice Camara, and that'll be exciting. Okay, so 1 hour for the workshops. All right, go for it.